Hello, folks. Good morning. So let's start introducing ClearlyDefined. This is a very exciting project. So my name is Vidal. I work with the open source initiative.
Just say it because I don't have my mic on.
This is Lynette from GitHub and Qing from SAP. And we're really excited to be here. So let's start off with introductions. What's the mission of ClearlyDefined, right? So our mission is highly ambitious. We want to crowdsource a global database of licensing metadata for every software component ever published for the benefit of all. This is very ambitious, but we hope to achieve that together with everyone. What's the problem that we're trying to solve? So we had a lot of talks here and even at the keynotes talking about compliance, about SBOMs, and how can we actually have SBOMs created at scale for every build, for every release. This is very challenging. A lot of organizations are trying to tackle that. At the same time, when there's missing licensing metadata, or if it's wrongly identified, how can these organizations fix that, right? If we have a component with a missing licensing metadata, and 100 organizations are using that components, why have 100 organizations solving that, each one on their own, if we could have just one organization solving that, fixing that, and all the 99 other ones having that fixed, right? We can work together to make it better. So the solution here is ClearlyDefined coming in and helping with that. And instead of having everyone to scan their code and to generate those SBOMs at scale for every build, for every release, why not just have this available through an API, making it really simple for people to actually use that licensing metadata. And also, instead of having 100 organizations fixing something that's wrong across several components, having everyone working together and solving those issues together. So ClearlyDefined provides that solution. It's very simple to get started. We're going to show right now how you can use that right away. So one of the ways that you can actually use ClearlyDefined is just open your terminal and access the API through a simple call. You can give, for example, here, this is Lodash, a very popular library, a JavaScript library. And you can get all the licensing metadata for this library, for this version, 4.17.21, and you have all this information at your fingertips, right? It's very simple to get started. Try exploring that. Now, the next step is once you are consuming that licensing metadata that's always up to date, and once you incorporate that into your workflow, and when you start using that, you're going to find you might find some licensing metadata that it's either wrong or needs to be updated or it's missing, and you can fix that. And so you can curate that data and return that curate data to everyone so everyone can benefit from that, right? It's not just you now alone trying to identify the licensing metadata, but working together as a group, a worldwide group of organizations, right? And you can also contribute that data through the user interface. That's one option available as well. Everything that we do at ClearlyDefined is open source. If you want to make changes or contribute to the project to help incorporate those changes to your workflow, if you see if that's useful for other organizations as well, everything is available on GitHub. And we support several package managers, all the way from NPM to PyPI and so forth. And we're getting more and more support as we go forward. We try to promote best practices and work with other toolings as well. Now, there has been some very exciting new developments. Right now, it's not just about SPDX licenses. We're also supporting licenses that fall outside of that, and that is really helpful. Of course, we promote open source projects, but it's important for us to keep track of non-open source projects as well, and their licenses. We also now provide support for Conda. This is really important because it provides a lot of data science projects, and this is getting more and more important, especially with all the AI advancements. And finally, something that's really interesting here is support from Guac. Guac is actually consuming ClearlyDefined's data and making that available. And so perhaps you have heard about Guac. It's one of the projects from OpenSSF. And now I'm going to provide some case studies. I have here Lynette from GitHub, who has done some exciting work around that, and also Qing. So please.
Hello, as mentioned, I work at GitHub. I am a developer in the working on license compliance solutions. And so ClearlyDefined is one part of that. And I'm going to talk a bit about how we use ClearlyDefined and why. And I'm going to cover a little bit of the common workflows that folks do with ClearlyDefined. So the first question is, why is it this data is business critical for us? So we all have a legal obligation to comply with the terms of the licenses of the dependencies that we use. And so the very first thing we need to do is know what those licenses are. And that's where ClearlyDefined comes in. And the other part of that is that attributions are typically one of the requirements of a license. And so we need that data as well. And then the why for ClearlyDefined, we have access to a lot of licenses already, but there are gaps. Some of those gaps come because things are defined in a non-standard way, or the code just lives somewhere else. And a lot of folks don't have access to those licenses easily, and so that brings ClearlyDefined into scope. It does the automated processing for you, and as mentioned previously, when there's something that's not quite right, there's a human curation process that benefits the entire community. And the impact it's already had on GitHub, we started using the ClearlyDefined licenses a little over a year ago, and we immediately brought in 17.5 million licenses at that time, and we're now over 40 million. And it just continues to grow as ClearlyDefined grows. And it has already had a major impact on many of the products and features that we have that use license data. All right, so I'm going to talk a little now about some of the workflows for ClearlyDefined. I wanted to point out that crawler and harvester are basically synonymous. So if you hear me say either one of those, I actually mean the same thing. There's three major components for ClearlyDefined: the website, the service that provides an API, and then the crawler, which actually does the harvesting. So through the website, you can ask for a definition. It makes an API call under the covers, or you could make that API call directly. And the service will go and look in the definition store, determine if there's a definition, return it if there is, and if not, it's actually going to send that information over to the crawler and say, hey, we need to find the license for this one. So the crawler pulls from the queue, it runs some major tools, reuse, licensee, scan code, which scans all the code that it can find, and there's also a ClearlyDefined one that runs as well. And the raw results are written to a store, and a notification goes back to the service. The service is going to read that raw data, summarize it, and then write out a definition. The next time you come in, that definition is going to be available, and you'll see it. And the next part I'm going to talk about the workflow is the curation workflow, and that's done by a human. It can either be done through the website, and again, it's going to end up being an API call to the service that you could make directly, and it's going to create a PR. So in this case, you might not have noticed because it's in the exact same place. On the right-hand side, it is not the crawler anymore. It is now the curated data repository. So it's creating a PR to the repository. You could create that PR as a human yourself, but in all cases, no matter how it gets over there, it has to go through a human review from a very small group of people who make sure that the curation is accurate. And at that point, if it's approved, it gets merged. A notification goes to the service, and it updates the data with these new curated, more accurate data. The last part I'm going to talk about from an architectural perspective is change notifications. Every change that happens in Clearly Defined gets published through the notifications. They are done on an hourly basis, and so you see the date and then the hour is where the change sets are called. Inside, you'll see the whole list of packages, and you can follow those paths down to the package and get the definition. So you can pull all of Clearly Defined's data through this process, and I'll show you how we use it in just a minute. So from the perspective of GitHub, our policy service is our license compliance central location. Everything comes through that. And when we initially created it, we asked for our definitions directly from Clearly Defined. And we got that benefit of if it wasn't already harvested, it would just automatically happen for us. But we do things at such a large scale that we were getting rate limited. And that's not surprising because the service needs to protect itself. And so we decided to bring a cache internally. And that's where that notifications piece comes in place. We have Package License Gateway is just a little application whose responsibility is to go read those notifications and put them into our cache. And so on an hourly basis, that happens. And now when the policy service needs data, it's asking for it from our local cache. We also stood up a harvester, again, for scale reasons. And also, it's one way that we contribute back to the project because we are taking some of the load off of their processors. And so if something's missing, it goes to our harvester. The process is basically the same, though. It goes into our queues, we harvest it, runs the same tools. When it writes, it goes directly to Clearly Defined's raw result store. But then it also notifies the service, and now that definition is available to everyone. And the very last piece is our generation of the attributions. So our policy service just happens to be the one that collates all of that. So it's still at the center of everything. It reaches out to the Package License Gateway to get those attributions out of the cache, just puts them into a JSON format. And then we have a little application at the bottom that turns that into a page that we can display on a website. And I just wanted to, being open source, we're always looking for new people to join. We have a roadmap, and it falls into 3 major categories. We're either focused on data quality or improving the performance or the sustainability of the community as a whole. And some of the things that we have are very distinct. They're isolated. If you only have a short amount of time, you can come in, work on those, and make that your only commitment. Or if you want to come in for a longer commitment, we're always happy to have more folks come on board. And I did just include this. I'm not going to go over it just for sakes of time, but this is information on how we set up our harvester. It's in the slides if you pull that up. It's very easy. So I'm going to pass it over to Qing.
Hello, my name is Qing. I'm going to talk about the adoption of Clearly Defined at SAP. At SAP, we believe co-innovation and collaboration with open source. We're committed to contributing to open source with integrity. At SAP, we take great care in understanding the composition and potential risks of open source projects that we might use. Use Dan's analogy this morning, we want to make sure our swimming pool is clean. So all the free and open source software we used in SAP must be reviewed. Our compliance analyst will review the requested files and evaluate the appropriate risk rating. And this process can be quite lengthy and very much involved. ClearlyDefined's approach to crowdsourcing license review process and the associated data has provided SAP great benefit. Our journey with ClearlyDefined started in 2018 when we became a member of the community. In 2019, we completed internal pilot and developed internal policy and started harvesting the components used by SAP and curating them in ClearlyDefined. In 2020, we completed implementation of a large-scale harvest automation. And since 2022, we have been contributing to the public code base, and we also been improving the internal automation and investigating the emerging use cases of the ClearlyDefined data. Our harvest automation service is a solution for harvesting components from our internal FOSS backlog using ClearlyDefined. We use the API calls, just like what you see Nick talked about, and to send requests to harvest requests to ClearlyDefined. Knowing when a component is harvested can be important so that we know when it's appropriate to consume the data. Currently, we use polling to see whether harvest results are available. After a component has been harvested, the coordinates are recorded into our internal FOSS database, and the component is put into a pipeline for our analysts to review. Our compliance analysts will inspect the component using ClearlyDefined, leveraging the available data points, including the declared and discovered licenses, to perform risk assessment. As you can see, ClearlyDefined has become an integral part of SAP's internal FOSS compliance process. It allows us to spend less time scanning and more time focusing on compliance. It also provides better data quality. There's a chance that a component has already been reviewed and curated by other members of the community. Multiple pairs of eyes are definitely better than one. The third benefit is also community-based. There are inherent benefits to working with other organizations and individuals towards a common goal of improving open source compliance. This is even easier when ClearlyDefined has provided such a platform to facilitate crowdsourcing efforts. We believe in community effort and has contributed to the ClearlyDefined data. Using curation, as Lynette described in previous slides. When a component is harvested, we can get its definition, summarizing all the metadata from the ClearlyDefined service. If there is missing information or incorrect information, our analysts will curate the component, submit a PR for review. When the PR is approved and merged, the definition of the component is updated, and everyone will benefit from this effort. Since 2022, we have been actively contributing to the development of ClearlyDefined. We implemented harvesting for Gradle plugin components. To improve efficiency, we reduced the number of downloads when harvesting a component. Most notably, together with Microsoft, we optimized the database schema and reduced the database operational costs by more than 90%. In many cases, what we learned through our internal work also drives our contribution to the public code base. For example, our data analyst, our data scientist conducted internal analyses on the no assertion cases. And based on the finding, we recognize some of the cases can be fixed in ClearlyDefined and have since made such various enhancements to improve the data quality in ClearlyDefined. We regularly collaborate with other members of the community, including developers from GitHub. Most recently, we provided code review to support the implementation of conda harvest and scan code update. As you can see, SAP has benefited. SAP's open source operations have benefited greatly from ClearlyDefined. ClearlyDefined is estimated to account for 30 to 50% in reduction of the review turnaround time. We intend to continue our contribution to the project community to improve ClearlyDefined and the quality of the data. And we invite you to come and join us. Join to have the fun, join in for the collaboration. Back to you.
Thank you, Qing, and thank you, Lynette. So we have some very successful case studies from GitHub, from SAP, from Microsoft, from Bloomberg, all working to solve this huge issue around compliance and to benefit everyone, right? So again, repeating Qing's words, please come and join our community. We have an open governance model, in fact, and just this month, we elected the steering committee and also the outreach committee. So Lynette is the chair of the steering committee. She has, together with Qing, been leading these efforts to improve ClearlyDefined. And Jeff also from Kusari, who's here, they're really helping to make this project better for everyone, right? Compliance is really important, and it's not just about you solving those issues at your company, at your organization isolated. You have a group of people who can work together with you and help to solve those issues. And ClearlyDefined provides that platform. We also have the outreach committee. Recently, I was elected chair. We also have Jeff from GitHub, Brian from SAP, and Alisa from Bloomberg. And we would like to invite you to join as part of this open governance model and to be part of our community. So with that, we would like to invite you to join our meetings. We have weekly developer meetings happening every Wednesday at this time. So we're having an in-person meeting right now. We have a recent documentation website that was released. You can look at our website as well for more information. You can ask questions at Discord as well. We'll be sharing the slides. We try to collaborate as much as possible with other organizations, with OpenSSF and others, right? And we would like to thank you. Please join our website and feel free to collaborate with us. Thanks. And I believe we have a few, maybe one or two questions. Yeah.
Do you support PURL as a way to identify a package to reduce the duplication of package?
Yeah, so that's, go ahead.
So PURLs are they're on our roadmap. So they've been requested a couple of times, and so we are exploring what would that take to do that, because we do have a coordinate system that we use for internal identification.
And I think having GitHub and open source initiative supporting PURL will probably be very helpful, because there are some ecosystems that are running their feet a bit. So
Yep, we totally agree with that.
Mm-hmm. Please.
Yeah, I'd like to know that at SAP, you have done with the open source, all the components you look at, are they all open source components or there's some proprietary components?
SAP, we support open source. We open part of the
So all the things that you have done are all open source?
We use ClearlyDefined for open source compliance. We use some open source components. Of course, we have proprietary components.
The other thing is, like, have you done things with, because I saw that you have finished off some computer before, what does that mean by data quality? What have you done with the 1.5?
Yeah, so we've done quite a bit of effort on data quality, and part of it would be if it's completely missing. Is there like a bug in the system or something that caused it to be missing? The most common source of data quality issues is that we will find too many licenses and then they kind of get anded together. And so we have plans to put in a routine that would like scan for those kind of issues and identify them, and that way we can get the curations in faster. And that's going to happen no matter how you get the licenses, because some people they define them in non-standard ways, and so it's not easy to identify.
Because actually the data quality and licenses, you focus on that.
Yeah, data quality is, of course, our highest priority. Being able to do things in a performant way is important, but if we don't have the data quality, then it doesn't matter if our system is fast.
All right, thank you, folks.